Welcome, friendshippers. Okay, so this is going to be very different. My face is not going to be on the camera, but we're going to learn some stuff together. So, first and foremost, my apologies for the camera quality that you're going to get here. I was convinced that I had a tripod that would work perfectly for filming this painting video, and sadly I was very, very wrong. It just did not work. It wasn't getting the right angles. It was not going to work. So I am working on that. I will absolutely have better equipment next time to be able to hold the camera and have it not be so shaky, but right now I'm holding it in my hand, so you're getting the shakiness of my hand. I apologize. And then my son is in here helping me. He's gonna hold the camera for me when I actually get painting. So between my shaky hands and his, I apologize in advance, but like I said, next time I will have a better camera setup. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So I'm actually going to show you two different methods that I use for starting a painting. These are not the only two methods that I use, but they're probably the two most common methods that I use. So I'm just gonna show you what I do here. First method is this is on paper. Now the methods I'm gonna show you are kind of interchangeable. It doesn't really matter what you're using. This is like watercolor paper, which is, you know, meant, it's got some texture to the paper. It's meant to take in water. And then I've got tape around the edges just because I feel like this makes for nicer, crisper borders when you're done painting, because I get a little crazy with paint and it goes all over, and so to just kind of have those nice crisp lines when you're done, I tape it down around the edges. Okay, and then the other thing I'm using here is I just got a cheap canvas. I get these, I mean, for my kids, like I get these in the, you know, value packs for my kids to use because they love to paint. So and these are just the, I said, super value packs. They're the little like 1/2 inch thickness, you know, canvases that you can get at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or whatever. So that's what I'm using just to demonstrate to you. Now when I paint, obviously I use like professional canvases that are a good 1.5 to 2 inches, you know, deep, and they're just, yeah, they're more professional. But for the sake of demonstrating, this works totally fine enough. It's great, and it's actually great for practice. I use these often for practicing or studies or things like that. So that's the two materials I'm using today, just to show you how I start painting. So things that I'm using, here's some materials. Now you don't need all of this. If you want to paint along with me, I'm going to show you what I'm using just so you have an idea of what you might want to have in order to paint with me, but you don't need to have all of this stuff, like for reals. Just use whatever you have. If you have one of those like cute little $10 art sets from Michael's that have like little watercolors or little acrylics in it, then just use that. Use whatever you got, okay? Use whatever you got. But here's what I'm using. So I'm going to be using, these are all water-based things. Since this is watercolor paper, everything I use on it is going to be water-based. If at any point I switch to something that's not water-based, I'm going to want to seal the paper, which we can talk about later. Y'all can ask me about that later and I can explain it. But I'm not going to seal the paper on this because I want this watercolor paper to interact with the water-based stuff I'm using. So everything I'm showing you here is water-based stuff. So this is... these are golden high flow acrylics. So yes, it's technically acrylics, but acrylics are water-based as well. So these are high flow. So they're like really, really liquidy and watery. So when they say high flow, they mean it. It will flow around. It's not going to be thick the way that like acrylic paint would be. I've also got these like little inks as well, acrylic inks. And then I'm also going to use, I know I just said everything I'm going to use is water-based. This is the one exception here. This is alcohol ink, and the reason why I'm going to use this is because I'm going to show you how it interacts with the water-based stuff. It makes for a cool effect. So that's the reason, that's the exception here, is the alcohol inks. And then I've got spray paints. Now these are not your regular spray paints. Do not go and just buy spray paint and think that that's going to work. It's not going to work. You will get a massive migraine and maybe make yourself sick. So these are water-based spray paints. They are made for artists, for indoor use, for paper, canvas, that sort of thing, okay? This brand here is MTN. This is actually my favorite brand. I feel like these smell the least. Like these have very little smell to it, and I've had the most success with these. I just like the way they move and the way they work. So this is my favorite brand. Another brand though that you can get is Liquitex. Again, these are these are the professional ones. These are the water-based ones. So yes, Liquitex does make like regular spray paint, like the kind you think when you think of spray paint, but these are the indoor use ones. These have some pretty good colors. I feel like they have more variety of colors than the MTN, but I prefer MTN brand personally. Okay, so that's what I'm using. There are other brands out there you can check out. Just like I said, make sure it's indoor and water-based. Oh, stencils. Haha, I love stencils, y'all. I use the spray paint with the stencils. So I've got a ton of different stencils, like a ton. I have them all over. I just grabbed a few just to have in front of me. Probably not going to use all these. We'll see. Salt. You'll want coarse salt. You want nice big coarse grains. Okay, the little fine table salt will not work very well for this at all. Get those big grains. Okay, you'll see what that's for in a little bit. Also, I've got just little fun pieces of like paper, collage paper. You can get little ephemera packs on like Etsy or Amazon. Like spend $5 to $10 and get just a big old pack of like random, you know, ephemera, little antique papers or stickers or whatever. I'm just using the paper, not the stickers. This will come in later. I will show you on the canvas. You can use this on paper as well. I use this on paper as well also, but it requires some materials that will seal the paper, and I don't want the paper sealed right now, so we're not going to use that on the paper. We'll come back to that. So you want to make sure that you have a nice thing of paper towels. Always paper towels when you're using water-based stuff. I have a bunch of brushes. And then last couple of things, this will come later when we use the canvas. I'm using this golden molding paste. Okay, it's to create texture with. I will explain more on that later. And we've got, sorry, I know I'm holding this camera in my hand. I'm sorry, it's shaky. Ah, come back. And then we have this golden heavy gel gloss. And then we've got my handy spray bottle. This honestly is one of my favorite tools ever. It's just a regular spray bottle, guys. It's just water for reals. Yeah, that's just wait. You'll see why this is my favorite. And then I've just got like a little palette knife and a wedge, this little like silicone wedge. Okay, so these are just things that I have in my toolkit here that I'm going to use. A nice bucket of water and a little palette next to me. Yeah, all right. I think that's enough. I have droned on now for way too long about these materials. If you have any questions about any of this or where to get it or anything like that, let me know. Otherwise, okay, let's get started with painting, y'all. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here is prep my paper to receive some of the inks and acrylics that we're going to be working with. So I've gotten my brush wet with just plain water. I'm just spreading it around just willy-nilly, whatever your heart desires. And now I'm grabbing one of the golden high flow acrylics and I'm just kind of dropping that in there. And now I'm going to reach for my favorite tool, that water bottle, and watch what happens as soon as I spray this. The water just makes it go everywhere, and I love it. It's my favorite. Okay, now I'm grabbing another color. We're going to add maybe some more purple into this. And as you can see, this next one that I use is going to be thicker, and so it's not going to move around quite as much as the high flow did. And if you pay attention where I put it down on the paper, where it's wet, it will move. But where the paper was drier, it just kind of sits there, if you noticed. So just something to be aware of. Be aware of your paper, where it's dry, where it's wet. Now I've grabbed this indigo color, and I'm just highlighting this a little bit. Like I just want to put a little bit of indigo. I didn't want to overuse it. Just wanted to have a little bit of it in there. And now I'm going to take my brush again, just with some water, and I'm going to use just the tip of the brush here to move some of the paint around and then tap that brush and splatter it everywhere. So I'm just picking up what's on the paper and splattering it around a bit more. Now at this point, the painting's looking pretty purple, so I'd like to throw in a complementary color, and the complementary color of purple is yellow. So that's what I'm looking for, a nice bright fluorescent yellow. But this time, instead of dropping it on the paper, I'm going to put it on my palette and use my brush to pick this up, a very wet brush, so that it's nice and watery. And then I'm going to splatter it, just tap my brush to splatter it around on the paper, give it some nice, lovely splash of color there to go with that purple. But I'm not done with the yellow yet because I have an alcohol ink I want to show you. Okay, so this alcohol ink is going to make the water move away. Water does not like alcohol, so watch this. There's a good amount of water down in here, so I'm going to put a drop right into this, and you'll see it just chased that away. It makes for these really cool kind of bloom effects. So I'm going to put some over here as well. Okay, so that's getting that little bloom effect. Okay, so something else I'm going to want to do while it's still wet, okay, this works especially well for where you have a lot of like water sort of areas, is the salt. Okay, salt will absorb a lot of that kind of color and water, and it will make a really cool effect once it dries. So I'm going to put just a bunch of salt there and over in this wet area here. Okay, and I'm just gonna let that sit and let it dry there. And tomorrow when it's dry, I will scrape off the salt, and then like you'll be able to see this really cool effect that it puts on there. So sometimes I'll wait until this is completely dry to put some spray paint over it, but sometimes I just go right in with spray paint even when it's wet because it will interact with things. Okay, so I'm just going to pick, it is wet here, but I'm going to go ahead and just spray into it anyway. I'm going to get nice and close so it's not this big wide spray. I want to get it nice close, and I'm going to move very quickly. So like, okay, see how it's interacting with the paint down there? This is just like a bit of a white color. And then same over here, I'm gonna get that just to interact with it a little bit. Now I got a little impatient, decided to take to the hair dryer. So this is just a regular hair dryer, and if you can see, when I turn it on to that high setting, it's gonna make that paint just flow. So you can get some cool effects out of that if you want to, and if you don't, just turn it down to the low setting and then things won't move quite as much. Now I didn't want this to be completely dry, I just wanted it to be not quite as wet, so it'll still be a little tacky, but it'll work well. Okay, so now I'm using this purple color, and I'm going to use my stencil here around the edge. There. Okay, so now that I've got the spray paint in with the stencil there, now I'm taking a look at it. I'm just kind of looking to see what it needs. I think I want to let this dry, actually. I don't want to overwork it while it's still wet. So I'm going to let it dry, keep looking at it for another day or two, and then come back and decide if I want to add some collage or do other things to it. But I'm just going to leave it here for now. So, okay, so we're going to prep our second piece now. This is on the little like 1/2-inch canvas. And so I'm actually going to start this without paint. So another way that I like to prep for a painting is to get some good like texture in there. If you take a look at a closer look at some of my other paintings, you'll see that there's different textures there. If you look really closely at some paintings that I did recently, these black and white paintings that I did, there's some collage paper in there with like music notes and little scripts, and then there's like this like pearl kind of texture and all these fun little things that just make the painting have a bit more like movement and character to them than just, you know, flat paint on a canvas. So that's what we're going to go for here. Is instead of starting with, now you can add texture afterwards. So the one we just did with the, you know, with the inks and things like that, and the water-based stuff and the paint, you can totally still add texture, and I might very well do that, to be honest. That's why I want it to dry, so that I can go in and do some texture type of things that need that to be dry. But for this one, we're gonna start without paint and just get texture in first before we put color onto it. So that's what we're gonna do here. So here's just some little collage papers that I started with. Now, I do recommend, if you're gonna put collage paper down, to try to have sort of like ripped organic edges rather than like the strict, you know, flat edge that you know, the edges of paper that are sharp edges. Now I'm leaving this sharp edge on this side because it is going to be here along a corner, so I'm not that worried about it. It's fine. But generally I try to make sure that there's no straight edges, just because when you go to paint, it makes for a nicer, more organic aesthetic when you're going to paint over those edges, that you don't have just this like straight stark line in your painting. So it's just something I recommend. So I've got these all kind of torn, and I kind of found a bit of a spot that I want them on here. You do you. Use whatever you want to use. Now what I'm going to use to get these down is I'm using this heavy gel gloss, and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use that with a wedge here, and that's what I'm going to use to get it actually sealed onto there. So I'm going to put some gel gloss down on the canvas first. I'm going to put the paper over, and then put some on top to seal it in. And then I'm going to switch over here to the molding paste, and this is going to add some texture on top of it. So this will dry clear. Okay, this is going to dry clear. This will dry white. Okay, so this will be texture, but it will be white. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do here is do this molding paste. Okay, this, I said, this will dry white, so you'll want to be mindful of how you put it, because this I don't have to be as mindful. It's kind of all over, but it's going to dry clear, so yeah, you know, I don't care. But this is going to dry white, so it matters where I put it. It's opaque. Okay, here I'm gonna be able to see through. It's gonna be opaque and white. It's gonna cover what you put it on. So, but I use this to just kind of hide some edges, so it's not like super obvious where the paper edges are. And I'm not gonna cover like all the edges. Like I'm not gonna be like, you know, anal about that, but I'm gonna cover some of them, you know, just so that there's some mystery. And I'm gonna like do little fun things like that and leave it like that, so that it's, and let it dry like that, so that it's texture on the canvas. And later I can go and paint over that, and it'll just be part of the painting. But if someone comes up to the painting and looks at it, they'll have this fun visual texture. So I'm just gonna leave that like that. Maybe just smooth out a little bit over here, certain spots. But generally speaking, this is the point of this, is to create some texture on the canvas before we even put paint onto it. So, okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so this is where I've left it for now. I think I'm gonna just leave it like this and let it dry, and then at that point I can decide if I want to add more texture or if I want to start getting some paint on it. Okay guys, so I just wanted to update you really quick. I scraped the salt off of this one once it dried. So I just wanted to zoom in and show you. Right here, you'll see where those little salt, like those coarse salt flakes were. And here it didn't show up quite as much as it usually does because I didn't have very many of the little pieces there. And I, you know, when I used the blow dryer on it, it did push paint even more and all of that. So, but you can see where some of them were, and then you can see it even more down here where I put a lot more salt. You can see where the salt was there. You can see just the design that it made or the effect that it made. And normally it's much more prominent than this. You'll see much more stark sort of, you know, little flowery kind of bloomy sort of design there. Like I said, this came out a bit more muddled just because I did take the blow dryer to it and it moved a lot of paint. But yeah, I just wanted to show you how that turned out. Thank you for starting these paintings with me today, friendshippers, and let me know if you want to see these paintings continue on into the next stages, or if you have other questions about painting or other painting projects you'd like me to do with you. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next time.